And we are live. And good morning, everybody. It is Road to Recovery. And let's see. Oh, you know what? Perhaps now you can hear me. Good morning. It is Road to Recovery. And I am talking to you live on April 3rd, 2023. And it's going to be a quick one this morning. I'm not going to be able to have a long discussion this morning because I have some work related tasks that I have to talk to. The fourth month, April. One of the things that's in the back of my mind is that in 12-step programs, in many 12-step programs, the tradition is that on each month you do a reading from whatever big book you're using on the particular step that reflects the month that you're in. So January would be step 1, February step 2. Well, universally, in most of the 12-step programs, the fourth step is considered the toughest one because it's reflective of a lot of deep digging that you have to do. You're getting at a lot of things. You're getting at your triggers. You're getting at your a lot of resentments that have been building up inside of you. So it's a difficult, and it's usually the longest step to have to get through. And we're here. We're at the fourth step, and I know that fourth month, fourth step, and I know that for me, what it means is that I get to be very reflective of the things that I worked on in my fourth step, and it brings a lot of reflection to me because I've already gone through the hard work and effort that was required, and the next things that happen as a result of that, you finish the rest of the steps, but it always lives with you. The fourth step always lives with you, unlike all the rest of the steps. Like step number 4 really solidifies what I would call cognitive reasoning. Like most of the time in our addictions, we don't pay attention to the other things that had happened inside of our lives at the time that we were in our addiction. But once you have done that fourth step, all of a sudden all the harm, all the pain, everything, it all gets realized. It's all gets manifested at once. And it's a changing moment for anybody who's serious about it because it builds your character. It's like a new beginning, I think, in step 4. Some people would consider step 1 because that's when you're accepting your addiction. But when you get to step 4, you're working it, man. You're really working it. So I'm going to be working a lot on that this month. I'm going to be talking about it in my meetings. I'm going to be helping other new sponsees out with it. The other thing I wanted to talk about this morning, and again, I'm going to make this a short conversation this morning, was talking about this process that I've been going through with. I was in another 12-step program, and I started my own. And that was it's pretty strong. It's been strong for me because I'm meeting a new set of people, and the program is now focused. It's like focused in porn addiction, and that whole process of bringing people together who only have one main focus, which is the focus area of the addiction itself, because groups like SLAA, SAA are very broad. They fit within the parameters of sex addiction, but people can come from left field and out of different locations. But when you're dealing with a porn addiction focus, it's very narrow. And it's good to talk with these people. One of the things I did recently is I didn't have anything that I could talk about like that's going on in my day-to-day activities. So I start talking about my stories like I do here on my YouTube channel. I just pick a random story and I just start talking about it. And the surprising thing for me is when I'm doing the video, I can't see you guys. I can't see how the story resonates. All I can do is reflect on the chat comments if they come in. But when you're in a room full of people and you start telling your story, and you see other people shaking their head, like there's some element of what you're saying resonates with another person. It's like that's when you know you're in the right crowd, because I couldn't do that in some of my other 12-step groups. But on this one got the resonance. The people understood and could relate to it. And I think that really helps because you're more prone to, once you realize you're talking to somebody else who gets it, you're more prone to doing the deep shares, and you feel more connected to the people you're talking to, and that level of connection brings, I think, a level of intimacy regarding, the recovery program. And you need that level of intimacy because not everybody gets this. Not everybody gets it. They think that they think that addiction is a bunch of BS, and they think that you're dealing with some sort of moral character crisis, right? They don't understand the nature of addiction and why it's difficult to beat it. So anyway, speaking of which, due to some interactions I've been having recently. Oh, by the way, shout out to Kurt, who I recently just threw up a video up there about Findom, which was a really powerful interview. Even if you have no idea what Findom is, you should probably go watch that if you have the opportunity to do so. That was a really powerful share. I was really proud of Kurt for him and I had lots of conversations. It's funny, we just met randomly online to just kind of talk about, what he was going through and the nature of like 12-step programs. It's a very broad discussion, but he started getting, he started going into some detail with me, and I had set up I told him to set up an open invitation. I was like, hey man, anytime you want to talk about this, we'll come back and try it out. And Kurt, to his credit, he thought about it and he got back in touch with me. He's like, yeah, let's do it. There was no planning for that recording, and you could probably tell I didn't have any questions really fielded for him. It was very spontaneous, and the interactions that him and I had on that video were just me naturally just asking questions. But that was a powerful share. Like, that's the sort of share you would get in a recovery room, except I gave him like an hour plus of recovery time. But anyway, give that a whirl. But stemming from that conversation and some other conversations that splintered off from that video, I've been really reflecting on the problem, because Kurt made light of it, and I've had a few other people make light of it, that within psychotherapy, there is this division that's happening that is difficult for some addicts, because there's some in psychotherapy who believe that moderation is an appropriate way to deal with a person who is an addict. And I think part of the problem is that behavioral addictions are not taken seriously by those in some of the areas of psychotherapy. So you could go to, say, somebody who've labeled themselves as a sex addiction therapist, and that person has no respect for the actual word addiction. And I tell this to everybody that comes into my circle. Man, if you're going to go seek therapy and you can afford it, find somebody who's a CSAT certified sex addiction therapist, because those people treat sex addiction seriously. But if they don't have that credentialing, I would be a little concerned, because there seems to be another subset who don't treat addiction seriously. They don't believe addiction actually exists. They believe that you're just, you're just a sexual being, and maybe that's true. Maybe you are just a sexual being, but they believe that the addiction side of the coin can't exist. That to practice abstinence, for example, is negative or harmful to you. And I can't think of a worse thing to tell somebody who may in fact be an addict. I can't think of a worse thing to say. And listen to that Kurt's interview if you get the opportunity, because that will explain quite clearly why you can't do that. You tell an addict that, oh, you can do your addiction, just, or you can do the things that are entailing your addiction, just do it moderately. Addicts don't know moderation. You cannot teach a person like that moderation. They don't want to hear it. They want to constantly engage. Why do they want to constantly engage? Because it feels good. They can't stop or slow down that cycle. I think one of the things that Gary Wilson on Your Brain on Porn really hammered home is that, uh, whether 90 days is the right number, I don't know, but man, if you just give yourself 90 days of not engaging in that activity, get yourself separated from, the behavior process, man, all kinds of positive benefits happen from that. And I would say that one of the things you do is that you get to experience what healthy living actually is, right? You get to actually feel that. And it happens relatively quick. You're still fighting the cravings and stuff like that, but you get to finally experience life with a clear head. And where I would probably say that, it's getting back into 12-step recovery areas, is that staying away from the thing that was driving you into the ground in the first place. Once you've gotten past that 90 days, you finally learned how to live a healthy lifestyle. Don't go back to the addiction. Don't go back to the thing that was making you unhealthy. Don't do it. You gave yourself the out. You needed that 90 days to be able to break away and experience a healthy lifestyle and to also break the habit routines. But once you've done that, and again, listening to Kurt's interview, once you've done that, you can kind of acknowledge other things about yourself. And for many of us, we were addicts first. What does that mean? We were addicts first. A person who is an addict has some part of their personality which is prone to addiction, and we kind of seize onto certain things. So sex is a really good one because you've got stress relieving hormones that are involved with that. You've got a large production of dopamine, which allows us to facilitate learning, so that you learn that habit. So there's a lot of things that happen with sex that are on the parallel with, say, drug abuse, because many narcotics also allow for dopamine release and creates habit forming behaviors. So the process of doing all of this, the process of engaging in your addiction, can also be thought of in terms of, a lot of people don't like to say this, but you might be prone to addictive behaviors because there's something about your biology that predicates you having more dopamine to release. And if you're prone to producing more dopamine to whatever that habit forming routine that you get into, then you're more prone to being in an addiction. This seems to be lost on a great deal of psychotherapists. And if you looked at people who are alcoholics, for example, history of alcoholism is in their family. And some might say, well, that was a learned behavior. Well, is it? Is it? Right? Yeah, they might be exposed to the fact that alcohol happens. But again, let's get back to the bar scenario. A person who is not an alcoholic can walk into a bar, have a drink of beer, and walk out, and it's just like another activity throughout their day. An alcoholic goes into the bar and they have one drink followed by another drink followed by another drink. They don't know how to stop. They might try to regulate, but after a while it becomes impossible to regulate. And that is not something that they learned to do, right? That is something that is happening within them. And I would argue that it's a neurological issue. That's why we like to say that, addiction, the act of addiction, right, is a disease. It's a disease because the addict mind does not know how to regulate, right? So if you find yourself in a spot where you have a difficult time stopping, you need to start thinking in terms of, am I a person who has an addictive personality? And if you hear Kurt's share, and it's not just Kurt's share, I mean, some of the other recordings, you can hear it through some of my other speakers. But Kurt's the last one, and it was a very powerful one. And he talked in detail about, he led off with, I'm an addict first. And he's absolutely right. Many of us have to recognize from step one that I'm an addict. I don't have control. As much as I like to think of myself as being a strong individual and having the capacity to control things, I don't have control. And if you can be honest with yourself and say that that's true, I don't have the capacity to control my actions, I'm an addict, then now you've finally taken the very step that needs to happen in order to succeed inside of a recovery program. Because if you keep denying that aspect of your personality, eventually the addiction is going to trip you up again. When you can acknowledge the fact that you are an addict, that means that you have to work your ass off. And that work, the things that we do inside of a 12-step program, all of that work is used to help you maintain any level of reasonable control, not over the addiction, but over the steps necessary to regulate and control the behaviors around your addiction. So you're always going to be an addict till the day you die. But what you can do is work on all the problems in your life, and strengthen yourself, raise yourself up, be a stronger person, work on all the personality attributes that help contribute to your addiction. And from that, you stop engaging in the addiction because you don't want to be the struggling addict anymore. You're going to be a recovered person, one who's capable and maintains their self-control. All right, that's it for today. Hope you all have a wonderful April. And if you need to reach me, look up above into the top of my YouTube channel. You'll see my Twitter handle. You can always DM me if you have questions, or email me at roadtorecovery11@yahoo.com. Stay on that road to recovery. Have a good day, everybody.